All right, we'll get started with Common Council meeting for Tuesday, April 28th, 2026. The first item on the agenda is roll call and Pledge of Allegiance.
Seth,
Here.
AJ,
Here.
Todd Kirking,
Here.
Kyle,
Here.
Todd Spaeth,
Here.
Cindy,
Here.
John,
Here.
Tanya,
Here.
Steve,
Here.
and Krista.
Here. All right. Item number 2, approval of the April 21st, 2026 special council minutes. Do we have a motion for that or
I'll
any
approve the
discussion?
meeting, the special council meeting minutes.
JJ, I'll second.
Thank you. Item 3, just kidding. We need a roll call. A vote. Voice vote. Working out the kinks. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. They're approved. Item number 3, council announcements. Does anybody have any?
No, it was. Sorry. Thank you. I don't know how much you heard. It's so important. We received an excellence award from the Wisconsin Association of Historic Preservation Commissions last Thursday. So I was up in Sturgeon Bay getting our reward. So thank you.
Okay, and then Chief Neefeld wanted me to mention, there's a bike rodeo that they've sponsored the last few years at Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Viroqua at 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. May 4th, this Saturday. So 10 to 4 or 10 to 1, 10 to 1. Right? Yeah, 10 to 1. Good event for the kids, yeah.
I'll add a couple also. This is the first weekend of the farmers market on Saturday. And also on Saturday, there's a park cleanup at Eckhart Park. So the first opportunity to come help clean out the garden beds, etc. There's also a Center Ave public info meeting on the 6th at 6 p.m. So next week. And more information will come through on that soon. Anything else?
I will remind everybody that NIMS training email went out. So hopefully you guys have signed up.
Is there a sign up on that email?
There's a sign up on the email, correct?
I think it says register. So look for that here. All right, we'll move on to item number 4, which is the first period for public comment.
Randy's online and would like to make a public comment.
Hey, Randy Skinner is my name. My address is E8187 Mapledale Road, Krista, I just wanted to say hello and welcome. I'm looking forward to working with you on the various committees and commissions I'm on. Nate, you're in big trouble with me. I just want to thank you for your incredible contributions to Viroqua during your time here. It was an absolute joy to work with you, and I learned so much. I am still impressed by your incredible wealth of knowledge and the amazing grace you present, coalescing all the factions that are involved in city government. So we were lucky to have you. Viroqua was a better place for it, and I'm grateful that you'll continue to be an incredible steward for our community. And lastly, let's put a pin in this VFW property and figure this out. All right, that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Randy.
We have quite a few people online. If anybody online would like to make a public comment, you can either raise your hand or unmute yourself at this time. Looks like you're good, Mayor.
All right, so we will move on to item number 5, which is discussion with possible action on dry utilities agreements for Hanson Farm development projects.
Andy Kurtz, our support person from Veerbecker, is online with us today. What we have for you was sent out as part of the council packet. Andy, I can put it on screen here if you would like to just give the same run through that you provided at the VDA. Oh, that's not it at all. If you have it on screen, you can feel free to share it, or actually, I will share it if you want to start giving the preamble and buy me some time.
Sure. Thank you, Nate. As Nate said, my name is Andy Kurtz. Mayor, we met, I think, at the VDA meeting briefly last week. The purpose of this particular agreement is to facilitate the installation of dry utilities, which would be power, gas, and telecommunications within the Hanson Farm project. As part of the development agreements that have been signed with the two developers already, and as part of future development agreements that are in the works with other developers in the area, they are responsible for the cost related to the extension of those utilities. Initially, the city's approach was to have each of the developers work independently with the utilities to get the power and gas and telecommunications from point A to point B, serving their developments. Ultimately, through conversation with the utilities, it was determined that it would be much cleaner if the city were to coordinate those activities and essentially work with the utilities to establish the infrastructure map, put all of the easements in place, get that all recorded as part of the plat of the area, and then to allocate the related and associated cost for the provisioning of electrical, gas, and telecommunications to each of the developers based on a formula, which is essentially the linear footage that is required to reach their particular property and the parcels within their development. Each of the utilities, with the exception of the VernonCom, has a upfront installation charge, and then they provide a connection credit once the development occurs. So once a house is built, once a meter is added, power company then issues a credit. Same for the gas company, which would be MG&E. Power is through Xcel Energy, and telecommunications will be through VernonCom. Essentially, what we've done is developed an addendum for the two development agreements that have been signed and added the same language into the development agreements that are in the works with the other parties to allocate that cost for those dry utilities to each of them, to define exactly how that is done, to define that the city's role is merely coordination of those activities, and that there is no financial responsibility on behalf of the city to pay for those utilities, that the developers will have to pay their portion of those connections as allocated by the formula. And then as they complete their developments and as their customers connect to those utilities, the credits are issued on an annual basis by the utilities back to the city, and then the city will distribute those back to the developers. So Nate and I have worked on this for a couple of weeks. It's been reviewed by the city attorney. Everything is in line with the expectations as laid out in the current development agreements and does clearly define who is responsible for what. And again, it's merely identifying the city as coordinating this activity, the financial burden for it, and the resulting connection credits that come from completion of their development and connection of the utilities, basically flow through the city to the developer and from the developer in the case of the cost. So this agreement is intended to be passed over to the developers upon approval by City Council and integrated in the other development agreements so that we can get those utilities in the ground and they can begin installation in time to have the other construction projects related to the signed development agreements begin sometime in June.
Thanks, Andy. Are there any questions about the addendum?
I was just curious. I know that electricity has to be Excel, the gas has to be MG&E, but there are other companies that do phone and internet in town, and I'm just curious were they asked or?
Yeah, good question, Andy. I know between you, myself, and Sarah, we have had some conversations to this point. Do we know if, I can't even see Sarah through everybody, any other conversations with like Frontier or MediaCom on this topic?
I have not had any contacts with them. The only names that I were provided was from the folks through Vernon.com. And installation of their fiber.
Because we live in a world of cell phones now. If they don't connect, say, fiber or telephone to their property, do they then not have to pay?
There's no cost for the installation of the fiber, so that would be correct. There's no cost to the homeowner if they do not connect to that service.
But the city is paying for that though?
No, Vernon.com is putting that infrastructure in at their cost.
Yeah, this is really just for MG&E and Excel. For the
Yes.
To Cindy's point on Frontier, I mean, I think we can certainly follow up and have a conversation with MediaCom and the rest of them. I don't know what typical protocol is on asking every utility if they want a shot at it. I don't think there's any harm in doing it. I don't know if it's required that you do. But if we're opening up a trench, it may be worthwhile to have this conversation now rather than later. So, but I don't think we'd be I don't know if the developers would be necessarily interested in paying for Frontier or MediaCom to install if Vernon.com isn't asking for money to install. So we can look at that follow up, but I don't think it should hold up. I think they would, regardless if they're in and out, they would follow the same addendum agreement.
Thank you.
Are the two current developers having to burden everything for now, even though this dry install will be in place for the multifamily and the other developed areas?
Yes. Andy, do you want to just briefly walk through how we've divided up the initial upfront cost?
Yeah, so essentially I've been working with the utilities to get a full estimate as to what their installation cost is for the entire development. The two developers that have signed will not be burdened with the full cost of the infrastructure installation because we are working very closely with two other developers, one on the commercial side and one on the residential side, both of which we anticipate to have their agreements completed here probably within 60 to 90 days, which would be in line with the potential installation timeline of the utilities. So the way that I did the matrix to break it up was allocating those costs essentially across the four developers, and then the credits would be spent back to those developers as they complete their projects. If one of those developers, for example, does not happen to come through, then that cost is something that is carried as a coordination cost by the city until such time as the development occurs, and then the credits are created, and then that goes through. But any developer that would come in subsequent to the ones that we're dealing with would have a portion of that cost allocated to them and credits then recouped by the developers that are in the mix already and future developers. So the idea is not to burden any single developer or pair of developers that have already signed. And that's why we're coordinating the activity, or the city is coordinating the activity. If it were done under the manner where a developer would have to contact the utility to do that, they could incur a much higher cost for running the power from point A to point B, for example. The gas is a prime example. There's about an 1,800-foot run of gas main required to actually service the site. The first developer that signed up would have had to have borne that entire cost, and they would not recover that from their connection credits, which is one of the reasons why, in talking to Nate and Sarah, we came to the conclusion that in order to be equitable in sharing that cost, we would need to coordinate that activity through the city.
Thank you for that explanation.
Yep, no problem.
And if, when we run the numbers, as we look at it, Andy may have mentioned this, but I'll just reiterate that for the most part, the developers, through their credits and actually hooking onto the system, should recoup all of their upfront cost. And so there shouldn't be any reason why the developers should be against this. It's been articulated in the development agreement since the get-go that they're responsible for this. If anything, we're going above and beyond by actually now taking on more of the coordination effort.
Any other discussion? No. Do we have a motion to approve this agreement?
This is Seth. I make a motion that we approve the develop agreement for dry utilities as presented.
ZJ, I'll second.
Just real quick clarification on this. I provided this one that has Vic Meyer-Wangen's name on there as an example, but as Andy noted, this language could then be used for any developer's addendum as well as any future developers. So I just want to make it clear it's not just Vic Meyer-Wangen you're approving. Is that comfortable with you two? Okay.
Do we need to make a change to how it's? Got it. Okay.
I accept that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it passes. Item number 6, discussion with possible action on the preliminary boundary amendment for TID 7.
So Andy's online. He'll help us with this again. TID is our tax increment district. It covers the majority of the north end of the city. It's one of the major tools that communities have to facilitate economic development. We've used our TIDs to help create the Roper Business Park, to buy the Hanson Farm, to help create the infrastructure for the Hanson Farm. Most often we use TIDs to provide developer grants, whereby a project couldn't happen unless a little bit of city assistance would come in to make that project happen. The current boundary agreement is being looked at the request of a couple different developers. It was included as part of your packet and is now going to be on the screen here. The blue, and I'll let Andy jump in here at a point, but the blue represents what was originally created as the boundary, right? So this is Arena Drive, where Silverthorne Development was created and is just now finishing up with some of its final units. Wild West Days, of course, here. Not that we're, just to give everybody their bearings. Railroad Avenue is where we have an industrial park that continues to develop. This, you'll see Shade Haven on the corner here. This is the first phase of the business park, and then it slides on down here. This is a vacant piece of grass south of Newsom's, and then as it drips down here, this is the Eagles. In 2023, I can't remember exactly when, Andy, maybe you have the notes on that, we did our first boundary amendment for TID 7 that added in the yellow boundary properties. So these were not added in originally because when TID 7 was originally created in 2019, those properties, the majority of those properties in yellow were not part of the city. So in order to be part of the TID, you have to be within the corporate boundaries of the city. And I believe that these were annexed in back in probably 2023 or so. And so with that, we added Kroll, and then the properties. This is the Aldi, now where the Aldi building sits. And of course, the Hanson Farm and property currently owned by the Bethel Homes. So all those were added in. And so we do try to, as properties come in and are either underdeveloped or completely undeveloped, add them in to make the opportunity there for a TID to be leveraged if necessary. So from there, I'll let kind of Andy jump in here. Is we have basically 3 ideas of what we would like to add further into the TID 7 boundary so that these new properties would also have the opportunity. There was one additional idea suggested from VDA, typically our development association, because they sort of use TID and understand TID the most in order to make projects happen. They would make a recommendation, but they wanted more time to think on it and sort of put forward a recommendation on what the boundaries should look like, if anything. And but they said as long as you have council coming up, they want to also know what the council thinks right off the bat, so they can consider that at their next VDA meeting. So that's the purpose of sort of looking at this map today. Andy, I believe the 4th item that was interested in being added was, help me out here.
Was the hospice house, I think it was called, and then potentially the school district building were the 2 parcels that were discussed.
The hospice house in particular, because I believe that building's been shuttered for 5 years. 5 years. And could be redeveloped. A portion of that land south of where the Early Learning Center is has been sold to the Early Learning Center. The Early Learning Center, in my mind, is fully developed, but if you leave it out, you kind of create a little island of not having TIF in the middle of it, so you could choose not to. There are some considerations we have to make when including stuff within a TID. Obviously, or I shouldn't say obviously, the state has a 12% rule whereby you can't have more than 12% of your equalized value within a city wrapped up into all your TIDs. Otherwise, you're considered TIFed out. And it would just make it problematic for us to create additional TIDs or amend boundaries in the future. So you don't want to just put everything on there and just do a blank slate. You have to be targeted. So Andy, anything you want to jump in, correct otherwise?
No, you're correct. It was 2023. Your description of the 12% rule is correct, and those were the properties that the VDA discussed. So the amendment that that we presented to the VDA incorporated 3 additional parcels. The grocery store parcel, which is in the northwest corner of the map there, just to the west of that 1011 area. The old Ford garage, which has some future development opportunity. It's undergone kind of a transformation, but there's some future activity that could potentially occur there. And then there's 30 plus acres of county land to the east of Railroad Ave. That would be ideal for future expansion of the business park. So those parcels have been identified by Nate and Kurt Muko, who many of you have had the opportunity to work with over the years. And those were identified as primary potential targets for this particular amendment, to include them within the new boundary of the TID, and then provide the opportunity, should development or redevelopment, in the case of the grocery store site, occur, you could use that tool that Nate referred to, which is tax increment financing, to help the developers essentially with their investment, with their capital stacks, and ultimately foster that development, which would not occur but for the use of tax increment financing. So those were the parcels that were considered initially. And then, as Nate mentioned, there were a couple of parcels that the VDA had some questions about. But ultimately, the goal is to incorporate lands within the village that are feasible for development and would benefit from the use of tax increment financing, and do not adversely affect your 12%. So the key with the acreage from the county, for example, is they are a tax exempt entity. There is no tax value or base value for that property. So the addition of that property does not affect any of the metrics for your 12%. The hospice house, if I recall the conversation, is also a nonprofit, although they are paying a pilot payment on that property. That also does not adversely affect your 12% calculation. The Early Learning Center, owned by the school district, another taxing entity. They also do not pay property taxes. So the addition of the majority of the property here does not impact your 12% calculation, which allows for flexibility with future amendments and/or creations of additional TIDs as needed as development requires. So that's kind of the summary of those particular areas. Again, two of them are redevelopment opportunities. The one out in the county is basically a raw greenfield development opportunity. There would be, in addition to expanding the boundaries, we would review the project plan and identify if there's additional infrastructure that would need to be added to the project plan so that it is eligible under the TID. And given the greenfield site of the county, there would be some additional infrastructure that would be added to the plan. It does not commit the city to constructing it. It just means the city would be able to utilize tax increment financing to construct it if a developer were available and interested in using that space.
I think what's important to know, particularly about the Vernon County parcel, is this isn't indicating that it has to develop. It's
Correct.
it just noted, part of the reason we're doing it is that with TID boundaries amendments, you only get so many during the life of the TID. You only get 4. And
Correct.
this would be our second one. So what we don't want to do is, hey, you know, the county has somebody approach them, wants to make a deal for a really tremendous, you know, project that would really benefit the county and the city and the, you know, everybody overall, but they need a little TIF assistance. Oh, we forgot to put it in the TID. Now we have to go use another boundary amendment to then amend the boundary to put it in there. So really what it does is it presents the opportunity, but that doesn't mean that we've had any conversations with the county that we're targeting, that we want to go after it. We have plenty of space already that we're working on developing. Again, it just puts it out there. As long as we're doing this, throw that in there because it is a large undeveloped parcel within the corporate boundaries of the city. But it's the VDA is looking for this group's feedback. This was just kind of our first throw at it because we have been, there have been a few developers, and in particular is the Village Market building. That is a property that could definitely benefit from some possible redevelopment opportunities. It's been vacant for a little bit of time now, I think 12 to 14 months. And that's often what TID can be used for, is to sort of transform dark stores into something that starts having activity and contributes to the general economy of the community.
How about Tractor Supply? Is that in, or I don't think it's in.
It's not based on this, no.
There's no interest in, they could use some help too, I would think, for the building.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a conversation that could be had. We have not reached out to the owners of that building. I think I do know who bought and purchased that, but we'll make note of that.
How close are we to the 12% threshold? Like, is adding something like that?
I think if I remember right, when I looked at the VDA meeting, you're at like 7.48 or 7.52. So you've got a pretty good number available up to your 12%. And again, these properties are not going to move that needle significantly that you would be at risk of eclipsing that 12%.
Nate, you mentioned we can do this 4 times. We've done it once. What's the lifetime of the TID?
It'll go on until 20, well, it depends on a couple things, but it was created in 2019. It's a 20-year lifespan, so it should terminate in 2039. However, the city and the Joint Review Board, which I'll get to in a second, what they do have options for extension. There's an affordable housing extension that we could partake that would extend it by 1 year. If the TID is distressed, which is something that this council has talked about before in relation to the landfill and the Hanson Farm in general, there could be a 3-year extension to the TID. And so there are a couple options, but as it stands right now, it's set to terminate in around 2039.
So I was at the BDA meeting and asked a question about, so the grocery store, Village Market property is just a portion of that quadrant, we'll call it, at that intersection. And I had said, well, what if we extended not just that parcel? I think a couple other people said, like, what about the Pizza Hut and the other frontage? And my thinking, and I think their thinking, was if you put the boundary around all of that, do we have an opportunity to give financing to do something with parking across the whole space so that it's not like everybody has an individual parking lot with, if there is a creative solution that uses more of that space for mixed use development, would we want to be able to give financing to the whole frontage?
Nate, do you want me to provide any input on that, or
Yeah,
is that just a general question?
yeah, certainly if you have it, I think at this point right now, what we're looking for the council is if there's, as your understanding of being around town, are there any properties like contiguous to this that are not currently in there that you feel like, hey, I feel like something wants to happen here and we just need to include it in the TID now. Certainly what Krista brings up regarding Village Market is the right train of thinking, right? Like, is there something where it shouldn't just be this parcel, right? Because what we're talking about is the building, but as well as the entire property here. And I think she's talking about adding in some of these items and potentially this building here, which is, I believe, the fitness, the laundry.
So ultimately, in that particular area, there's a couple of things within the project plan as it exists, and typically what we write into the project plan is that eligible costs can be incurred within a half-mile boundary of the TID. So in the case, if we include just this particular parcel, for example, the community could expend tax increment within a half-mile of that, which would help in that broader neighborhood redevelopment plan or area redevelopment plan. Could include some funding to the other buildings for facade improvements or other improvements or parking improvements. And it doesn't necessarily add the base value of those structures into the TID, affecting your 12% number. If they are not in the TID, if they do make improvements and there is increment created by those improvements, that increment would not be captured by the tax increment district if they are not within the boundary of the tax increment district. So the question is, I guess, really from the VDA standpoint and from the standpoint of the council, is what do you envision as the redevelopment plan for that area, and is expenditure within the half-mile sufficient to do so? And you wouldn't anticipate there to be a significant uptick in increment from the other properties, or do you think that that would spur additional investment in the other properties, which would result in increment, which would be great to capture in the tax increment district? So it's a very good question. It's not as easy to answer in terms of what you should do. You have the option to do either. It is really dependent on, I guess, what the vision for redevelopment in that area is. And I think, as Nate had alluded to, there isn't a defined plan right now for that area. So it's kind of one of those things where you could certainly add it. It's not necessarily, again, going to move the needle significantly towards your 12%. Allows you to capture increment if it's created, and certainly allows you to expend eligible expense. If you don't include all of those parcels, you still have the ability to incur eligible expense. You just won't capture any increment generated on those. Is it 3 parcels or 4 parcels there, Nate, for those others outside of the grocery store? Looks like maybe 4 or 5. So that would be the question. Ultimately, is how does the council and then how does the VDA view future increment opportunity on those existing properties?
Thank you for explaining that, Andy. I think that helps with some of my question of, does it still benefit other properties if they're not within this boundary? And if I'm remembering correctly, it was at this point in the conversation with the VDA that I think we started to say, like, we should probably have some conversations with some of these owners
Yeah.
about what they have in mind for their properties or what they're envisioning in, within their own parcel. But if there's 2 and 3 that are near each other that are considering something, do they know about it themselves or with each other? So I think there's some of the question of why this came to council was, how do we want to proceed with those conversations?
Yeah, great point. I think certainly having a discussion with those property owners, sharing with them what the options are, and getting their input on if they are interested in redeveloping, if they're what the options are, and if they have a plan. That would be great information for both the council and for the VDA. And honestly, for us as we write the project plan.
Yeah. Is there, and this is something that I just don't yet know, but is there a service or a precedent of having these conversations that we've done before in a phase like this when we're making adjustments to a TID that we would follow?
Well, I guess Nate, you can probably talk to that more effectively in the city of Viroqua than I can. I know that Kurt has been very involved in talking to developers in the community, as it relates to this particular TID and other TIDs. I don't think it's uncommon for the city and or us as a consultant for the city to be involved and engaged in those conversations. So I don't think that would be something new. I just don't know with these particular individuals if that level of conversation has occurred. And Nate, you certainly could add some insight to that.
Yeah, I think it's as we continue to get a bead in just our general work on the VDA and just economic development throughout the city, we start to get a sense of where the opportunity lies. You start working on a parcel and you start looking at all the parcels next to them. You drive through town and you see that, hey, Quillen's has been shuttered for a little bit of time here. How do we start making that go? And, what we're doing tonight is part of the process, is leveraging everybody else's perspectives on what they see going on in the community, whereby we're setting up a TID to help us move forward in the best possible way. So I think kind of your question is on display right now, the answer at least. And so I would say traditionally we don't have conversations with every potential developer that could be or could not be included in a TID, because that's somewhat time intensive, and it's just not something we've undertaken in the past.
How was the half mile? Is it from the border of the TID, or is it from a central point within the
Border of-
any
yeah, within-
particular border?
Yeah, within 1/2 mile of any portion of the TID. And typically we use that 1/2 mile when using TID money to do community projects. Not since I have been here have we used TID money to incentivize a developer that exists outside of the TID. Because typically when you're incentivizing a developer, it's to create more tax base, which feeds back into the TID and creates more money for projects. The only things that we typically have used, again, within that 1/2 mile, or things like park projects, road reconstruction projects, stuff that is necessary to keep that, those properties within the TID thriving. So
Can I say something? I do think that moving forward with this plan is a really good idea. However, I also agree, with that the point Chris is trying to make, which is like maybe at some point we can review our TIDs from a bigger eagle eye perspective. That would give us a better answer, I think, to the question of like, are we missing some areas? I mean, I'm not sure that we are, but I think it's hard to answer a question just looking at one TID. about whether or not we're capturing everything that we need to. And I do think that these, is it 3 or there's a missing one, or we're still waiting for VDA to weigh in on something, but I do like what I'm seeing here on the screen.
There's something in the comp plan about this, about TID expansion.
Yeah, I mean, just that we continue to leverage it to have, you know, generally written within the economic phase of the, you know, element of the comp plan, but it doesn't specify, right? Like, again, the comp plan, to get that detailed on this type of stuff within the comp plan is not where it's at.
Yeah.
And in a way, the project plan of a TID is intended to be just that. It's intended to specify what we are trying to do.
Go ahead.
Just for clarification, the Vernon County parcel, is that from that road there, or is it that, what would be that square?
That square, yeah, it's off screen a little bit. I think Andy did his best to try to fit everything on screen, but would you say, Andy, it's 32 to 36 acres?
Yeah, I believe it's a 32 acre parcel. Just shy of a 40.
So one thing that being newer to this group and listening a lot, feel free to have discussion about this, but maybe it is possible to have, like, as Tanya suggested, a review of the TIDs that we currently have so that properties understand, if Nate brings up a good point, like it's maybe a little harder to knock every commercial door and say, what are you working on? How do you, how can we help? But I think if we do the right communication strategy, it might be worth people knowing that we're going to do a review and looking at these things and say, that's the time to come and learn about what does this tool offer you and offer our city. And then we look to make adjustments. But I'm not opposed to this adjustment. I just am offering that as an idea towards how we look at this.
Just for reference,
Thank
what you'll
you.
see on screen here is essentially we're operating with pretty much two TIDs, two active TIDs right now. Everything else has sort of hit the stage of its life where it's either been overlapped by another TID, which can happen. So you see, it looks like TID 5 here is really small, and that's only because TID 7 has been laid over the top of it in order to continue. And that was done before my time. Well, actually, no, that was done in 2019, right when I got here. The other major TID is TID number 6, which is the downtown TID. And when we think about TIDs, at least right now, is like they're really focused on commercial and industrial development. That is starting to open up a little bit with some of the new language that Governor Evers has signed into law through the state legislature. But it always had traditionally been residential had limits, right? Like TID 7 is referred to as a multi-use TID. And even though it's called multi-use, residential can only be a small component of it per state law. Now, again, that is opening up a little bit, but that's, traditionally what you see. And those are, just for frame of reference, those are the two TIDs that we have that are active right now. Everything else, 4 and 5, is essentially sunsetting, and really no developers can really use those TIDs in order to get TIF developments or anything like that. Most of them are just getting ready to kind of either put into the affordable housing fund or transfer their remaining dollars to TID 6. So again, I think this will come back for further consideration. I know VDA wanted more time to look at it as well. I think we got some initial feedback that continues to be in line, but again, we're not looking for like, hey, I think we absolutely need to do this. It's more of like, are there ideas? Are there thoughts? Is there anything in the back of your mind that said, hey, what about this property or this property? Or just a general sense of like, hey, we should maybe, the general idea of expanding your search or expanding your amendment is a little bit of what I'm hearing.
Correct. I think it's good to include as much as we can there.
if we approve the changes, and then does that go back to the VDA to make that decision on those 3 or 4 parts?
I would say it's a group decision between the VDA and the council. Ultimately, the council can overrule the VDA and say, nope, we want this instead of that. But you do sort of entrust VDA with helping make economic development decisions, which is why it sort of started with them. And it's up to you whether you want them to make the final pitch and proposal. Important to note is that the final decision on what happens isn't the choice of the VDA or the council, is the choice of the Joint Review Board. So the Joint Review Board is a separate entity that is specifically designed to approve TID amendments. And it includes a voting member from the county, the school district, the tech college, the city, and 1 member at large. Because those are the entities that all sort of have stakes in what the TIDs do, to just put it briefly.
And I
So
think
eventually the TID proposal that Andy and Kurt have been working on would then go to them. And if the Joint Review Board approves it, then it would be sent to the Department of Revenue and so on and so forth for formal implementation and documentation.
So would it be an acceptable idea or proposal to kind of weigh in to say whether we agree with the additions in theory, like if that, and then send it back to the VDA? Do we want to add anything else, like a proposal to engage with property owners within this boundary or touching the boundary, or have a listening session or an open, adding something on their agenda? So that if we're going to use a change for, one of those 4 amendment, and there's something that could be captured in, that someone's like, oh yeah, I'm going to be doing a project in the next year, then it's brought forward. I think that they might be looking for something like that, where we're making a recommendation of like, well, yeah, this seems like a generally good direction, we support it, and verifying with landowners through.
So when you say
Listen.
verifying with landowners,
Yeah.
that's the only thing that gives me pause, because that would be quite the undertaking. When you say, inquire with any adjacent landowners.
I'm thinking like putting it out in the paper, or having an item on an agenda that says that gives the public notice that this TID, that there's a development change that's occurring and there's a possible improvement benefit for them.
So the entire process does run through Plan Commission, VDA, City Council, Joint Review Board, and does require a public hearing. So there are 4 public meetings that essentially do get posted and do offer that. You certainly can promote the fact that that is going on, and that would be an opportunity. But those sessions do occur. They are public meetings. They're not public input meetings. They're public meetings just like your city council meeting. And you can take public comment at those meetings. Or you could do, to your point, a direct mailing to those particular properties that you had in mind. If those properties are being included into the TID, it is required that we do send them notice of that. So it gives them the opportunity to ask questions and be involved. But there's a couple of ways you can do it, but there are a series of public meetings already that are required by law for the process.
Have those been scheduled as part of this yet, or is that after the board of review?
No, so those have not been scheduled. So essentially, Nate, if you want to let me share, I can throw the schedule up there.
Ready for you, Andy.
Oh, you have a schedule? Perfect. Yeah, if you slide down that agreement towards the bottom, I think it's Appendix A. So this is a tentative schedule of what would occur. Essentially, this schedule will be modified based on the approval date of when you want us to start. And then it lays out, Plan Commission meeting, Common Council meeting, has the dates for them, has a Joint Review Board notifications, the Joint Review Board executive notifications, setting of a public hearing, holding of the public hearing, the second Joint Review Board, which is the final step in the process. So this schedule lays out all of the steps required to either create or amend a TID. And it includes all of the public meetings that would be required, as well as some of the other processes that have to occur kind of behind the scenes to support those public meetings.
Thank you. I remember you giving some of these dates at the VDA
Sure.
and not remembering this
Yeah,
process.
no problem.
Putting that up.
I'm sure you are drinking from a fire hose from all the other information that you're getting from the city. So
And I may, in fact, be the fire hose.
no worries.
No, thank you. I'm going to ask another novice question just because now that I'm seeing this. So let's say we're in B, right? Common Council meeting authorization to proceed. So if council gives authorization to proceed, and we say we're going to put these in, and then we proceed down and we get into item C, and it turns out like actually we're going to take 2 of those back out, or we're going to add some in. Are those changes possible as we go down this process?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. Yeah.
So essentially, like
Yeah,
we
so if there's additional parcels identified, they can be added. If there's ones you want to remove, that we consider they can be added. We create a draft plan that is reviewed at the first Joint Review Board meeting and at the Plan Commission meeting. Those plans are finalized for the public hearing, and then ultimately for the City Council meeting to review the plan and approve the plan by resolution, and then ultimately the second Joint Review Board meeting. So we can make modifications to that plan through this entire process, right up to the public hearing.
Thank you.
Yep.
And that is a great point. We probably buried the lead a little bit there. Is like really what we're talking about here is the first question is, do you want to do this at all? Right? If there's no appetite for amending the TID boundary, then we stop the conversation now and don't do anything. And so that's why the VDA said, yeah, we're not ready to like comment on it, but they too were generally in favor of amending the TID boundary. It's just to what degree. So know that. I mean, Krista was there. She can vouch for that sort of general sentiment within the VDA. They didn't make a formal motion on it. But again, essentially what we're looking right here is general feedback. And then if you are ready to proceed, the next agenda item would be the Veer-Becker agreement to carry this plan out on our behalf, which is traditionally what has been done.
Go ahead, Cindy.
I make a motion that we give authorization to proceed with the preliminary boundary amendment for TID 7.
This is Seth. I second that motion.
Do we want to do both at the same time or separate? Separate. Okay. So on item 6,
I got
do
a
we
question. I
Yep.
just got a question. Are we including the education early learning center property and the hospice property as well?
That was generally what came out of VDA, and that's the sentiment I'm getting from this group. Again, as we go through the process, there will be updated maps and things like that to sort of along the way. But I think what I've heard so far, again, Krista was in the meeting, is there's a general congruency with what council's feeling as what VDA was feeling. So I think there's an alignment there based on just the general conversation.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So we'll move on to item 7, discussion with possible action on Veer-Becker agreement for TID 7 boundary amendment.
Andy, I'll let you go ahead and take this. I'll have it on screen here.
Thank you. So all the fun stuff that we just talked about, including the timeline, is a process, and it is something that we drafted a professional services agreement for, which Nate has been is kind of displaying here a little bit. There you go. Yep, way up at the top of that. So this particular agreement essentially lays out all of those steps that are in the calendar, all of the activities that we will be specifically executing against that, including creation of notices, creation of letters and communication to the property owners, to the Joint Review Board, to the Joint Review Board executives, to City Council, to the VDA. and then ultimately managing and shepherding that process through all of the meetings, getting all of the appropriate resolutions passed, and then filing the required paperwork with the Department of Revenue to make that take effect. So that entire activity is encompassed in this particular agreement. We anticipate that the cost for that is going to be about $8,200. A lot of that is the various meetings that we're doing, the development of the project plan. The project plan includes updated mapping and things of that nature. And then there's some Department of Revenue time in order to fill out all the templates that they have as a required part of their submission. And then we ultimately submit it, they certify it, and it takes effect. And then we notify the property lister at the county so that they can incorporate those parcels into the TID boundary, and that's for tax purposes and revenue purposes for the city. So this proposal covers all of those activities from front to end, and cost for that is $8,200.
Again, as I should say again, this is a TID eligible expense, amending the TID boundary.
It is.
It would be leveraged TID 7, and again, the goal here is that as increment is created within some of our boundary agreements, it will more than pay for itself.
Make a motion, we approve the Veer-Becker agreement for TID 7 boundary amendment.
Motion from Cindy,
AJ, I'll second.
second from AJ. All in favor? Oh, roll call.
Seth,
Aye.
AJ,
Aye.
Todd Kirking,
Aye.
Kyle,
Aye.
Pat Spade,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Tanya,
Aye.
and Steve.
Aye.
All right.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you. Yep, I will let everybody know that we will begin this process. Nate, if you can just get that signed and over to us, we'll get the team rolling on it and start scheduling the meetings and putting documents together.
All right. Thank you so much.
Just letting you know that I'm changing the name on it because Nate can't sign it. It's got to be the mayor.
Correct. Yep. And I think I did that on the last agreement also. So yes, we can certainly do that. So if
just
you want to
waited
do that,
out.
great. If you want me to do it, I can do it also.
I waited it out. We're good.
All right. Excellent. All right. Anything else, Nate, that you need me for this evening?
I think we're good. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks, Andy.
Bye-bye.
All right, item number 8. Acceptance of Administrator Torres' resignation.
Okay, this was included as part of your council packet. It was sent out as an email the day of. This is the council packet from our special council meeting. This is not going to be helpful. It essentially articulated what I said before, which is I try to provide notice on the 21st. I would like to honor the 60-day notice that I offered previously. And so my last day would be June 21st, which is a Saturday, perhaps? Sunday? No, that's a Sunday. And so technically my last working day will be the 19th, but it's sort of that's the long and short of it, folks.
Any discussion?
What happens if we don't approve?
I thought about just
Well,
going to number 9, but
Tempting though it is. I appreciate that, but yeah, so here, now that I finally found it, yep, it's on screen, and I really enjoyed my time here. Tough decision to make, but I'm happy that I can continue to stick around and sort of grow my role and service to the community in just a slightly different way. So I hope you guys will accept my resignation, but as always, it's your call on how you want to vote, and just don't look at Lori when you do it.
any motion?
This is Todd. I move to approve the resignation of Nate Torres.
Thank you, Todd.
AJ, I'll second that.
All right. Roll call or
Reluctantly.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Me.
How many need to be opposed? Okay, thank you, Nate. Okay, now we're on to number 9, review and approval of the administrator job description and job posting.
Mayor, how did we had talked briefly about which one you wanted to start with and that possibly you wanted to switch around these agenda items. Is that still your plan?
Yeah, should we move 10 ahead?
I think that's what
Start
you
with
want.
that? Yep. So we'll jump down to 10 and then come back to 9, but discussion with possible action on process, timeline, and hiring committee for the city administrator position.
So I'm going to go ahead and put up a draft of the timeline that the mayor and I have been working on. This is probably the 3rd iteration, and there are still some yellow. It's still a little rough, but that's, I think, in part because we want a little bit of feedback from this. And we've also been, in the short time since I made my announcement, doing more research to sort of get in line with some of the mayor's ideas that she wants to sort of propose tonight. So with that, I'll let you kind of take it a little bit from here and maybe
Sure.
start with, do you want to start with the hiring team? And
Yeah,
kind of
well,
talk-
first I verified that Nate does not have a twin, so that's not an option. And then as we looked at pulling together job descriptions, things from when Nate had been hired, and the ordinance that dictates what our city administrator's responsibilities and duties are. And as we put our heads down and started working on all these things, it became more clear that it was going to be more productive for us to bring the discussion to you and start to get familiar with what this process is going to look like and give you a preview into it and some options of how to proceed. So in the past, we have kind of moved to put a job description up on the city website and market it in a few key places. We can still kind of go with the direction that we've done this before, but then there are some alternative options because I think our city is at a place where we've made some big investments. We're parting with a city administrator who I wish was going to stay forever. And so I think we need to be setting the bait to fish for somebody who is going to come in with some time in their pocket of like, this is what they've done. And we're at a nice point in our development as a city where we're finishing up comprehensive planning. And then the focus of this work going forward is implementing those plans, economic development, and then unlocking housing. So there is an opportunity, and Nate's helped do some research on this and has membership with some of these groups and relationship with them. So we made some calls to talk and understand and then give you the option whether we want to hire and do the process ourselves or if we want to contract with a professional agency group to help us with this process and get to a wider pool of candidates possibly that we might not have reached. They can also, there's different levels of service, and I know Nate's made some calls so he can talk about that. So that's one of the key kind of questions. We can choose a direction of how to proceed on this process. The other thing that I sat with for a little while was feeling really urgent to get this done and in front of you and it be like great. And then we move forward really fast and make sure we get somebody in so we can have time where Nate's with that next person. And I thought I wanted to paint the picture with Nate of what if we don't move urgently, but we move very thoughtfully and we spend a couple weeks of time in order to get a candidate that's here for 10 plus years. And what does the offset of a little cost at the front do for a great candidate that's here longer and is a good fit? Not to say that there's not somebody already in the community or already here in our team that wants to apply. This also gives a great fair baseline of everybody's going to be seen through a neutral lens of here's all the candidates that came in. Here's the 7 or 8 that came to the top. We narrow it down to the 5 or 6 to move forward with, and then go through this first, second interview process with the committee, hiring committee, department heads. And this timeline shows you like, this is kind of a longest possible way. And then we can look at that and say, actually, no, we don't want to do that, or we don't have the funds to do that. So Nate's helped find some of those fences for us.
Yeah, so, there are a few different firms in the state of Wisconsin that help with basically recruitment, right? I did reach out to my contact at one of them, who she herself is a former city administrator, works for a group called IPA. And what I'll tell you is just generally what these type of companies do and what the cost is and what that process looks like. So essentially, they do sort of a flat fee sort of thing. And what you get is they handle the recruitment. So they'll work with cities, figure out what the job description is, and then through their marketing materials and channels, make sure it gets out. They also, in their role, have connections with city administrators and know who's looking, right? They know who's out there. They know who maybe is in transition or whatever it is. And so they're using like personal contacts to bring applications to the doorstep. But they would work with the city. They basically stated that within a week or so of having an agreement signed, that they would be able to get the job posted on our behalf. So it's a pretty short turnaround time, but they would need about a week. And I got on the phone with this individual today. I think she's actually online right now. And she was very responsive. And so I have no doubt that she or some other group similar to IPA, there's also PAA, HR Gov, a couple different firms that do similar things. They would also be able to explore what a appropriate salary range is. I know that's something that the mayor and I talked about, is concerns about where our salary range is at for this position and whether or not it deters a 10-year potential candidate from applying. And so they have data and they work with administrators, kind of know what's out there in the community, and would be able to make suggestions to that. Usually do a 4-week submission timeline, which isn't out of line with what we typically do when we post something. And then they would also come help facilitate the interviews, and they would make sure that people get scheduled. They would work with whoever we appoint. And I think this is important. It's like they wouldn't sit and do all the interviews and make the decisions for us, but they would help facilitate the interviews happening. So the city would still appoint who the interview and decision makers are on the selection process, and throughout the selection process, they would just help facilitate it. They would help with any negotiations on employment agreements. If you remember, back at the end of March, I had proposed an employment agreement. They would help do something similar. And again, that wasn't just me making it up. That is best practices happening throughout the state, where city administrators, county administrators are proposing and working on agreements. And again, that's not just for the benefit of the city administrator, that's also for the benefit of the organizations. Dollar amounts are looking at between 15 and 16,000 for the full thing, and that is a flat rate. It doesn't change based on, hey, if we remove these 3 tasks or these 3 items from the scope of work, can it get lower? This firm in particular is very specific about wanting to do the full process, and they feel very strongly and confidently about the value of that. So that's what I found from them. I think the money is one thing. I think within the timeline Krista and I worked on, it will set us back a little bit, but I will note that based on my best guess right now and just working with Krista, we would be looking at maybe August 6th as a start date for a new administrator, if we sort of step back and explored this option. That's my best guess. And again, sometimes that depends on who you hire. Assuming a 30-day notice, are they somebody like me who feels they need to give a 60-day notice? That extends the timeline further. Okay.
Yeah.
So, any questions on that? That's sort of my 15-minute conversation from this afternoon.
Thank you. So in preparation for this, we felt like it was responsible to give you the full choice of lanes for us to go down. 2 benefits I saw that we haven't said yet. One, this allows Nate to focus on continuing to do the work that he is doing all the way through the time that he is with us, rather than supporting any of this additional work to onboard somebody else. It also, I did some research and reading of like what's the real value of it. It's like buying an insurance policy that even if the candidate is here already in the, in our community, this is going to make sure that we make a smooth transition and continue the trajectory that we're on, and that we don't risk having this go not well, and then we lose 1.5 to 2 times that salary to recover from a fit that's not quite right. So there's not really a wrong path. We did some budget exploration to look at like, are there funds for
Yeah.
something like this? So we can talk more about that too.
Yeah. So before I move on that, Jess from IPA is on hand. I will note that, and I kind of said this to Jess before, is like, they're not the only firm in town. I would want to do due diligence and sort of look at what the other firms offer. Is it commensurate? I've heard good things about their firm. I've heard good things about other firms. But she is here, and I think she would answer any questions you have about their process. But if not, I can talk about the budget.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Donnie.
What sort of, guarantee or, risk mitigation do we have if, that they will provide us with a candidate that we like?
I'm
Do you know
happy
what
to
I'm
jump in
saying?
if you'd like. Mhm.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, we often, well, first of all, thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of your meeting. It's been really lovely to listen and learn about all the projects you have going on. Our firm would present candidates to you that we've screened, that we've compared to the desired qualities, education, experience, and fit that your council and your department head team has deemed important and most important. Then once you do end up hiring an individual, we would stand by them every step of the way. We would assist with the transition. We would also guarantee, if they were to leave within a year, we would guarantee doing the recruitment again at only the cost of advertising. But that's very rare in the case of recruiting an administrator. There's a code of ethics with the WCMA and ICMA organizations that a minimum of 2-year commitment is what administrators commit to when they go to a new position. So it's typically extremely rare that an employee would leave before that period of time, or that would be somebody that you'd be very unhappy with. Our goal is best fit for your city, your organization. I'm happy to answer any other questions or talk through process or the value of working with Recruiter on your most probably important position within your city organization.
Can you say your name again? Sorry, I don't know that I.
Sure. It's Jess, Jess Wilds, Wildes. I'm a partner of Innovative Public Advisors, and in short, IPA.
Okay, thank you. I just wasn't sure that I caught it on the first time. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, do you have, I guess, I'm assuming you work with communities our size, like, do you have?
Absolutely.
All right, so it's not just bigger communities, it's communities.
Yeah, so we started our firm a little over a year ago after serving as administrators, because we felt that there was a need for maybe a different take on administrative recruitment, administrator recruitment. And we are responsive, we're swift, we have a communications background. We do all of our recruitment ourselves, and we have connections in the administrator network, and especially in Wisconsin and the Midwest. We served more than 56 municipalities this last year. So we feel that there was a need that we saw and maybe saw one in return. And it's been fantastic. We've done more than 37 recruitments. I'm currently serving as an interim in Omro, which is about 4,000 people right now. Was recently an interim and did the recruitment in Campbellsport, Wisconsin. My business partner, Jay Shambo, served as an administrator for 32 years in city, village, and county government, has extensive connections. He's serving right now as an interim and finishing his time there. And we serve communities of all sizes. and get to know the council, the organization, really what you're looking for. It was fantastic to hear your TID conversations tonight. We're extremely experienced in TID and TID and amendments and economic development, and see that as even more of a reason to find somebody for, Viroqua who has experience in that and can keep your momentum going, because it seems like you have a lot of positive things going on and a great administrator, outgoing.
Do you have a question? Go ahead, Seth.
Well, I just, on the note of the interim city administrator, is that a part of that's a whole separate thing from the recruiting?
Yep, and it's not required. And then maybe in your case, since you have somebody giving a 60-day notice, honestly, I think you could probably avoid that altogether. We included it in a proposal that I sent over to Nate earlier today. But think that you have enough time. If you'd like to get going, we're a firm that could do that with you and be swift and intentional at the same time, so that you can minimize that time where you don't have an administrator, and can also really minimize the cost that comes along with interim administration.
Appreciate knowing that. Thank you.
Can I elaborate a little bit on interim, or do you have another question?
Oh,
on
go
that?
ahead and
Yeah.
I'll go after you.
We looked into, like, if there is a gap, how do we cover that? And Jess is offering some great ideas, and I don't know if it's, Jess, you can chime in if this is the same path or process that you guys would be proposing, but it's my understanding that the Wisconsin City County Management Association has a pool of retired administrators that you can hire with an annualized salary rate to cover the gap. So we again, in this process document, Nate and I are painting that picture of like longest option of here's how we would navigate this if we needed everything, right? But we can, it gives us good information to know what we don't want to do or what we're definitely going to do. The other consideration is that we cover that interim position internally, and that I think is a common practice. It does take people maybe off of some of the things that they're already working on, and because it's a peak season, I don't think we want Kale to be the interim. Just a thought, but Kale is head of our Parks and Rec, so.
Yeah, like you said, you do have options, and depending on the organization and who you have working in it, sometimes it can be a brief period of time where you have a key department head or even a couple take on a few of the, day-to-day operations and major projects that you have going on, and you can make it work for a little bit of time. Or you can have an interim administrator be there. ICMA does have some options, or WCMA, sorry, but they're more mentors at this point. So really, their hired administrators are typically through one of the firms that are available. So PAA or our firm or MGT, like you mentioned, we all have very similar process in that we have advisors or associates that work for our firms that are a lot of times recently retired, or in transition, or potential, maybe they live in that region and have experience and are available to serve, and they work for us as an interim, or we serve ourselves, members of our team. And so you do have some options. I think, interim services are really helpful when you have especially a significant gap period of time. But if you don't, then you can move swiftly in having one less transition person in place. It can work either way. It just really depends how fast or slow you want to go.
Thank you, Jess. One of the things that had me feeling some senses of urgency in this process was that there's momentum right now around, county changes, city changes, new mayor. So there's momentum to capture an active audience. And I know from some research, there are other communities in our state, essentially also Richland Center went through this in the last couple of years. So there are people who are looking around here who have looked recently or been part of a candidate process recently that we could capture if we move sooner than later. So I think what we need to decide is how we want to manage the hiring process, and if we're looking to have external support through it, or if we're looking to do it internally, and then what helps make that decision. Go ahead, Kyle.
So some of us were here. I certainly wasn't here when we recruited Nate. I'd be interested to hear what the process was like for that, or even maybe prior city administrator. I mean, my intuition, having, as a person that moved to this city because I wanted to be part of this community, and then I found a job here. And I think, Sarah Granger's another example of that. There are other examples in the room. We all know people, and just the fact that we've got a lot of people on the council that are from here, have been here longer. Lori, in terms of like understanding the type of person, what a good fit would be. I think we should consider trying to do it ourselves at first. I know there may be an urgency, so maybe it's not the right thing to do. Could we try it at first ourselves? And then if, we're not getting enough reach, we could consider using a firm, because 15K is not a ton of money, but if we're trying to land a candidate that we're excited about, we could use some of that as a signing bonus, just another thing to consider. But all that to say, I feel like Viroqua markets itself a little bit, and maybe there's someone already here that would be interested in the role. But if we can get the reach out ourselves, Viroqua's a special place. People should want to move here.
I second that.
My opinion is the opposite. We should hire the firm, because I was here when we went through it, and so was John. And I just think our chances of making a wiser decision, or a broader audience, of applications, that would be my vote.
Yeah, I agree. We certainly don't need to go backwards. We need to keep getting as good a candidates as we can, and I think that's our best opportunity.
Yeah, so what did that look like? Is that how we found Nate was through? No.
We lucked out.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, what I have on screen, what I originally sent to Krista was this, which was just a reiteration of what I remember we did in the past, which is just a standard hiring process. We posted ourselves, we set up the interviews, we have an interview team, and then eventually it comes back to interviews here at council with all the department heads in closed session. And then it's not fundamentally different than any other hire that we do here at the city. Part of what we would need to just do is make sure we hit as many of the channels as possible to get our word out there. The WCMA has message boards, right? Like, we post it as far and wide as we can. Obviously, it's not going to be, I don't think we'll be as effective as recruiters, right? But there's that dollar savings, which is a real conversation.
And I think a lot of Nate's time would be spent dealing with that versus more important things that he needs to get, focus on during the rest of his time here. So I fully agree with the hiring an outside firm.
I guess that's part of my question is, would you be the one that would be running point on organizing posting and all that, or does that fall on somebody else within the city?
It's certainly a team effort. I mean, Lori and I would work together, Trina and I would work together. Krista, as the mayor, of course, I'll say she's in a little bit different place than, at least within her first week, than Justin was in terms of like availability. And again, nothing against Justin and his availability, but it's just like within the first week, that's the sense I'm getting. And so whether or not she would be interested in taking on additional roles, she's already taken on a lot of initiative and crafting this plan. I would assume that would carry through a little bit more. And because this person would report directly to her in the council, then it would make sense that she would have a larger role in facilitating some of this, but I would certainly be there to help as much as Krista would want me to. But I think what Todd said is there are a number of projects that I need to try to get to a point where they're in good stopping points before I leave. The budget is one of them. And as much as I can do all the prep work for the budget and get that going so that the new person coming in, when they show up in August, just runs the play. They know what they need to do. They need to support it. This is all the steps. It's all laid out. It will make that's the biggest thing I'm worried about in the transition, is that as soon as July 4th hits, it's budget time. And it's a lot. And so,
July 4th is after Nate's not here.
Right.
Just so that we're looking at the calendar.
It's what, yeah, it looks like Tanya has a question, but just in general, I can go either way on this, but just to answer Kyle's question, that's sort of what we've done before. It's just your standard hiring process. I think Tanya has her hand.
Go ahead, Tanya.
Thanks. And Jess also has a question too. I don't know if you saw that. Jess, would a firm like yours do a certain amount of weeding out of whatever, what do you call that when you're like sorting of candidates and doing a little bit of legwork for us that would have to be done in-house if you did not do that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, we start off with our approach by doing a brief survey with your team and getting to understand sort of what you're looking for as your next ideal candidate. Then so I saw as a part of your agenda packet is the review of your position description and possible salary range. We would work with you on that as well to compare it to other communities your size. Some of the things that we're seeing industry standard wise, maybe minimum requirements, things like that, and also your salary comparables to make sure that you're kind of in line with the market right now. Nate and I had a brief conversation about that. Then as we post it, so we don't just post it and wait to see who comes. We post it and we are extremely intentional in reaching out to people. We've built relationships with administrators across the state who we know have a desired geographical location they might want to end up in. We know of individuals in your area. We worked in Whitehall, which is just north. We've worked in Richmond Center, worked in other locations where we've met people along the way, and we know that they're interested in moving on if an opportunity comes up. So we're really active in using those connections to bring them forward. As we receive applications, we put it out for approximately 4 weeks and do the active recruitment and postings and take that off of your team. I think that's a great point, is it is a lot of work. And as your outgoing administrator or team members are working, they can focus on that and we can focus on this and really find you some great candidates. We bring them forward after this first review date, which is about 4 weeks out usually from the posting, and we would meet with you in a closed session to review the candidates. We would have pre-screen them all. We would, have any candidates that really don't meet any of the criteria, not be a part of that necessarily. We talk through them, but, provide you with an overview, talk through each one. And you're the ones doing the hiring. We're providing that legwork, that some recommendations perhaps, but this is ultimately your hire and we're to help kind of facilitate and guide you in that process. Then from there, we would bring the candidates in and facilitate an interview process with your team, your council, and community tour, all those components, and make sure it's a really smooth process where they're having a really positive experience, and as are you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Since we're sharing opinions, and I definitely don't want to poo-poo on Kyle's stuff because it's right. This is an area and a place that a lot of people are going to want to be in. It is possible that we have a Nate replacement here, but I've definitely learned in my 1.5 years here that having a good Nate is vital and absolutely that investment, I think, in getting recruitment out there will help solidify, if that person is here, that's the right person regardless of that time. So that's my thought, hoping to find another good Nate. But
Thank you, Seth. I had the same kind of, I've been having that same like pull back and forth because we have such a great pool of people here. And I thought, what if we end up writing our own description without some outside advice and we end up giving an impression to somebody that they're not qualified or they're not the right candidate, but actually they could be a great candidate, but we didn't know enough of what we don't know to have matched. There's kind of nuances like that. I think we can also, as we dig into job description and posting, whether we do it ourselves or not, we can talk about is this a position that we want to say, yes, we accept people who are going to live in the surrounding area within, you can give boundaries to like within a certain amount of response time. But you can also say preferred to live in the city of Viroqua. Unfortunately, we all know that's very hard. So that might limit things also. Like there's a lot of ways that we can look at this, and that's why Nate and I are bringing it like this. It's a bit raw, but these were all conversations he and I have been having for a week, and kind of like, no, this is a council conversation to bring as is. So
Yeah, and to be clear, I don't feel super strongly about it, but I have had the pleasure of hiring a lot of people over the last 12 years at Organic Valley, some of which we used headhunters for, and just found that. But again, that was a full-time job. It wasn't a bunch of volunteers and other people that had other day jobs that were needing to stick to that. So, and definitely curious to hear what else Nate needs to be wrapping up in that time. So that's pertinent as well.
I made him a list.
All right. If there's a list of more than
We've
three
started
things,
it, and
then-
there's lots. He likes spreadsheets, so I left a lot of spaces for him to add in.
If we're going this route, it might be prudent just to talk about the dollars, and where that might come from. So, I did hurriedly put together a review of the first quarter financial report. The biggest thing that I always look for at the beginning of the year is how did health insurance enrollment go? It's a huge dollar amount that can really swing. Just like roughly like one plan for one employee, the employer's contribution can be 20,000 a year. So one less person enrolled is a huge difference. Right now that our forecast on health insurance is strong, we're a little bit to the positive, meaning that, our health insurance, if everything holds steady, will be potentially $10,000 under budget is my best forecast. But that's one set of GLs within the budget, but that's looking strong. Everything else is on trend. I don't have any concerns at this point. We had a rough winter, but it's hard to tell until the other half of the winter that comes in November, December actually occurs before we really know. And I haven't had time at all to work with the department heads on seeing what they're seeing when they look at their financials. So you're working with half the information I usually give you when I do the quarterly review. The only other thing I'll say that's on there is and Tanya will remember this because I think she maybe made the motion to the point is, at the end of last year when we were approving the budget, we were not able to fund our contribution to the Smart Bus program as much as we usually do. A little bit of it because there was like an 11th hour save with the Smart Bus, and we already moved on and reallocated our normal annual allocation elsewhere. So all we were able to put into there was around $900, and our normal contribution is $5. And so sort of what I had encouraged is like, hey, let's get through the year, see where health insurance lands, and if there's excess dollars there, we can talk about backfilling the Smart Bus contribution up to $5,000. I can't remember if the motion was official, but I think everybody was generally in favor of that plan. So just be aware that even if we save $10,000 on health insurance to the end of the year, $4,000 of it could be considered spoken for at this point, but ultimately that's your guys' call as a council. I don't think it was a strong.
It was not a motion. What I made was not a motion, Nate.
Okay.
It was a recommendation that we all contribute to pay for the Smart Bus by using 1 month of our stipends. So I did not suggest that we should, I did not make a motion that we should fund that
Right.
through the GL.
And I let the city or the county administration at La Crosse County, who runs the Smart Bus, aware of that. They continue to run the Smart Bus. As far as I know, I continue to see it driving around, and I think they plan to continue it through the end of the year at the very least. What comes of it after that, I don't know. But again, more conversation to have. I think we're maybe a little off topic there, but that is the best in terms of like understanding our financials. I can put you at everything out. Like, I guess to put it as succinctly as I can, I don't have a reserve pot of money where we could pull this from right off the top of my head. Could we find it by looking at some of the GLs and saying, let's take a little bit from here, a little bit from here, and a little bit from here and doing a budget amendment? Yes, we could do that. But again, that's going to be at the cost of something else we had decided to do during budget time. The only other thing I'll put out there is that I do put out there a contingency fund for when people leave the city and get paid out for their accruals. So they're sick and like a portion of their sick time and vacation time. I usually account for one person. We already had one person walk away this year. I would make a second person. So that's another hit that is somewhat unbudgeted for, that I don't know what that's going to look like when all is said and done, but it's tricky, right? Like we just don't have, like to Kyle's point, like $15,000 for a city of our size is not necessarily easy to come by and just readily available. We budget for everybody in the audience, we budget extremely tight. We budget extremely tight because we have to.
Thank you, Nate. We looked at that a lot today. So I can, yeah, it's, I think to look back at the agenda and think about like where we headed, maybe what we can do is kind of decouple the conversation, is that we can decide tonight if we want to pursue listing this ourselves, and that sets us on a direction to get the posting buttoned up, which we've already been working on and it's in process. So it's not like it's not there, but we just don't have anything formal to put in front of you tonight. But we could do that either next week or at the next council meeting. Like if we wanted to bring a special council meeting specific to that to move it more quickly. Or we could say, actually, let's pursue hiring, but go get acquainted with all of the options for doing it. Like, are there other service providers that give a small city package that we haven't yet found because we haven't made the call? So I see this as like, which direction do we want to go? And then we can make an action and approval towards those things and then know what we're going to take on next.
Do you want a motion?
Is there any other thoughts on where people are at or any other questions? But I think, yeah,
I make a motion that we pursue hiring a company to do the hiring process. And as far as checking out other companies, I guess that would be fine also, but we can't take too much time doing any of that.
This is John, I'll second.
Do we need a roll call for that? Okay, roll call.
AJ,
Aye.
Todd Kirking,
Aye.
Kyle,
Aye.
Todd Spath,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Tanya,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
and Seth.
Aye.
So that's for item 10.
Do you want to go through
Do you want to look at it?
the hiring team?
Yeah. Yes. So we've up at the top of this document, we have put together what we there it is. Yep. So suggesting probably a 5-member team so that we don't, if we do take it to a vote, we don't have a tie vote. Made up of mayor, 3 council members, and I did some research to think about whether including department heads inside of the team or as a part of like non-voting and then adding in a public, one person from the public at large. I saw recommendations of people who use prior mayors, prior city administrators, or like a trusted public facilitator or somebody. Does anybody want to weigh in on that composition?
So just to maybe reiterate, because I took a second to kind of understand what Krista was saying. So the team itself would be 7 people, but within that, it's really the mayor, the 3 council members, and the 1 public person who would sort of have the final say. The department heads would be there to provide perspective, understanding and could weigh in on what they see and what they hear. But I think what I heard Chris just say is those 5 people that are on the top there would be sort of the voting members if it came to that. Oftentimes when I've been on hiring teams, it's usually consensus is reached without having to go to a vote, but I
Yeah.
think it's important to always have that backup plan.
Yeah.
And then, did you want to, just for reference, then go down? So like, that's the hiring team that sort of like in the in-house model would look at the candidates, make a selection, do the first round of interviews, make a proposal for who makes it to the second round of interviews. And then when you get to the second round of interviews, which is down here, that would go and follow what we've done before, which it would come to council. We'd go into closed session. All council members would then have the opportunity to weigh in on 2 to 3 of the candidate finalists, along with the department heads. And then as a group, the council would make a selection.
And that's all department heads, not just the 2 from the committee. So just so that it's clear that like this is a group decision that everybody will be part of in the process.
So even if you're not involved on the original stuff, doesn't mean you won't have a say.
Correct. It's just like, how do we keep it concise and find meeting times for a smaller group to keep it moving forward and bringing things to council as we go?
Sorry, I got lost a little bit there. Are you saying that the first hiring team is only if we're doing it in-house?
Great question. The only reason I specified it is because if we're going with the consultant, as the last motion was, the roles and responsibilities of the hiring team would be much smaller. But they would still be there to conduct the first round of interviews, and they would sort of work directly with the consultants. Otherwise, they would just do it themselves.
Understood. Thank you. Yeah, I don't see any problem with that, the makeup of that 7-person committee, 5 voting.
Do you want an official motion to that?
Well, I can also, do you think we need to define who's on that tonight? Or is that something that we bring back?
If it were me, you might as well.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're
Yeah.
here, you might as well go through maybe
Okay.
what you're thinking. And so that way, like, hey, we understand what the core of it, and then you kind of get a sense of like who's available to do it.
Yep.
Your call.
So mayor, 3 council members, my thinking was that we would have Steve as president, Cindy, very involved, strong history on stewardship of this process. And then I wanted to put it out there to see if anybody else wants to be part of this at the committee level. And then my suggestion would be for a public person that we bring Justin into this if he can fold back into it, because he has the history of where we're at. And yeah, he doesn't know this yet, so we should definitely vote. Justin, are you on?
He just found the back door.
You in there? I like to recommend people who aren't here. So yeah, I mean, that's where my head's at. And then I spoke with Sarah and Chad as the 2 department heads, knowing what we're walking kind of into with comp planning and doing building and public works. And Sarah's been through this process before and was part of hiring Nate, and Chad and Nate work. I mean, we all work together a lot, but there's a long-standing wisdom.
Yeah, well, just with my role in economic development, I often have to interface with Chad on a number of things as he is the zoning administrator. So, and then you would also be able to provide a perspective of somebody who I don't oversee and then I work with in a peer-to-peer capacity. So I think there's also value in that of, you could pick, Lori or, Kale, but again, I think those are probably the best. And again, they have long tenure here and have seen, they're probably 2 of the most tenured department heads and things like that. So that would be my recommendation as well, if you're looking for it, but do you have something? Oh, okay.
You all right with that, Lori?
I just want to be a
Maybe
part of the
close to home.
end because I know I was here when Nate was hired. And the discussion and the decisions were not always the best for everybody. But they were excellent when we made the recommendation. I'll just put it that way.
Okay, got it. Very, very true.
Yeah, I think it's imperative that Lori's on that committee.
1, 2, 3.
I remember very specifically what you said. I remember, right, yeah.
I mean, I am, well, let's, 1, 2, 3.
So we could leave, I mean, I think we could leave the department heads up to like, I think that would maybe be well within the realm of what Krista could appoint as further conversations happen, if you guys are generally okay with it, but that's who she's thinking as department heads. I think the big thing is just making sure we nail down who the council members and
Yeah.
that general structure is okay, and
Yeah.
then who the council members are, because we always do that with you guys when we set up these teams, is we want to know that you're on board with who got selected to be on that team, and they move forward with your authority to act in that capacity.
I would not mind being on that committee if there's nobody else wants to be on it. And I also would recommend that if Justin's not available, that we ask Alisanne Taylor, who has a history of HR and also just went through this process herself at the county level.
Let's go.
Alisanne's in the room.
I figured as much, but I couldn't hear what she said.
I said,
It was with
Alisanne's
her.
the one that stole Nate.
Alisanne said things with her
Yes.
eyes.
This is her punishment for taking Nate away from us, is that she should have to sit on this committee and help us find a replacement.
I'm definitely too new to be on the hiring team. Anybody else feeling moved?
Get Tanya.
But she said unless anybody else
Yeah.
wanted to, so I wanted to give that voice.
Yeah, I'm gonna be gone part of the time here for a couple weeks, and whether that comes into play here or not, I don't know, but
Just want to make sure everybody knows they're fair game.
Do we want an official vote on that, Lori? We probably should.
All right. Do you need me to say it?
Seth will make a motion to nominate Steve, Cindy, and Tanya to be the 3 council members on the hiring team.
I'll second it.
Need to say the department heads? No.
We weren't
You
official.
want the public member?
If you want to put the public member in that instance, fine, but if for some reason Justin can't, Alisanne can't, I think it would leave it up to the mayor to
I
make
am-
that decision.
yeah, to leave that in Krista's.
Do we,
control.
so since Justin didn't come, do we want to add Lori into the hiring team?
I would just leave it as the 2 department heads at this point, and if you decide that you wanted to add me,
Okay.
that's fine. But you don't have
Okay.
to do it as part of the motion.
All right.
So typically what we've done when we nominate somebody who's not in the room is this is
Follow up.
exactly what we're doing. Say like, hey, we'll make first pitch to Justin if he's available. If not, backup plan would be asking Alisanne. If not, backup plan would be allowing the mayor to appoint as, if you want to give her that authority.
Yes, I would amend my motion to allow Krista the freedom, mayor, the freedom to select through the stepping process and come to your conclusion.
I'll second that.
Do we need a roll call on that or just all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So that concludes we moved number 10 up. Number 9 is review and approval of the administrator job description and job posting. And at this time, with the direction we're pursuing, I think it's best to, if anybody has discussion items they want to bring up on that they see as key features or considerations. But I think what I'm hearing is that we move forward with the process to bring the next step of hiring somebody forward. And then that comes after. Do we need a motion for that? tabled. Tabled. All right. So number 11, discussion with possible action on a City of Viroqua Farmers Market booth. This is an item that I added
Before
on.
you move on, Krista, I'm sorry. I just wanted to thank Jess for being here and helping us out. And I don't know if we want to let her know whether we're done with her so she can go.
Well, just thank you. Yeah.
Thank you,
No,
Jen.
no worries. Thank you all. Thanks.
Thanks, Tanya.
No problem.
Okay, so the City of Viroqua Farmers Market booth, I've had a couple meetings with Trina and learned that the library is going to be having a booth at the market in starting this Saturday, focused mostly on the tool sharing. The idea that putting this on here brings forward is that the city has, in the past, we've had a market presence for things like the bike ped plan, projects that we're working on that we want public input. We do have a number of those things kind of coming forward, like Hanson Farm, the Center Ave project. The open public meeting is on the 6th, which is next week. So if we were to, I had a conversation with Allison at the chamber, and her guidance is that we make clear what our purpose for being there is, so that it's not, initially my vision was that we would have a presence there and it would be, you know, the mayor sometimes or one or two council members, and we would, you know, be listening, informing. There might be a list of projects that are active, just having another place to engage with the public with more regularity where they already are. But she wants to see us have a very focused agenda if we're going to do that, which I respect, because it could get into like a political sphere that would open the market up to, and the board up to, like, yeah, it's just, if we have a clear reason for being there. So I just wanted to bring this up for discussion and possible action. I think at this time, Caleb is going to be at the market booth this Saturday, and I'm going to spend some time helping him because it's the first Saturday, and helping get people acquainted and having a familiarity and listening. So this could be something that we also discuss and table, but yeah. Caleb is with the library. He's in charge of the tool sharing.
Sure. Yes,
Yep.
yes, yes.
So he's going to be at the booth, and Trina and I talked about what that looks like and that he might need some support there. So I'm going to step forward this Saturday to be present at the market and give him some support and put a city face at the market. Does anybody want to come? I'm kind of kidding. You can come. No pressure.
Is this something you want to happen weekly or monthly?
I think that's part of the discussion, is that if we feel like this is something we want to do monthly, obviously we need to be thoughtful about who is there so that we don't end up with a quorum either of council or any of our committees. But there's a number of active projects that I think would be worth putting our eyes on and thinking, actually, yeah, having a market presence on this date is the right thing to do. And maybe the action we can take here is that if you guys want to allow me some bandwidth to work with Trina, because a lot of that kind of goes through the library and communications, then she and I can have some leeway to say, actually, I think we're going to do this. And then I can put a call out to you to say, does anybody want to sign up to be at the booth on this day? That's kind of how I see it happening, so that we just have a more nimble presence. Also, to talk about like what I envision at this booth, I have some furniture. This isn't something that I see us accruing costs for. And I'll work with Allison to understand the best placement of what we would be doing. And maybe it is just having our presence alongside the booth that's already there for the library.
I'll make a motion that we let the mayor go ahead with the City of Viroqua Farmers Market booth plan and figure it out as she goes.
AJ will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Shall we take a break? Does anybody need a break? You want to do the bills fast? Bills fast. All right. So item 12, payment of the bills,
Make a
finance.
Motion, we pay the bills.
This is Seth. I second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor on paying the bills? We don't need to.
We had to do a roll call anytime.
Roll
there's money
call to pay the
involved.
bills. Call them out.
Todd Kirking,
Aye.
Kyle,
Aye.
Todd Spath, Cindy,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Tanya,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Seth,
Aye.
and AJ.
Aye.
So I'm looking at the agenda. We can either have a pause and a break or move public comment up before we head into a closed session about the VFW, item 13. Does anybody
Push public comment up.
start with that right now? Okay, so we're gonna move item 15.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, go
if
ahead.
They're all going to make a public comment about that. It might be nice for the rest of us to be able to take a quick break. I don't know.
Okay,
Is
we'll
that
take
okay?
a 3-minute break and come back for second period for public comment. All right, we are back for item 15. We're going to move the second period for public comment up the agenda before a closed session item. Any public comments, go ahead and, if you're online, raise your hand or unmute and say your first and last name and address of residence.
This one? There we go. I'm Aaron Parker. I'm at 111 North Lincoln Avenue. And first I would just like to second Randy Skinner's comments at the beginning. I had a few questions about the TID 7 district. One being, I'm not sure if there's a particularly compelling, I mean, the question is there a particularly compelling reason to use one of the four expansions, one of the four changes now? And, you know, I don't know, but, you know, and, you know, should there be, do we have a vision for, you know, for what that TID district is supposed to be accomplishing, and does expanding its borders now make sense? I think there are a couple of economic reasons to be concerned about that. One is that the expanding more to the east, let me back that up. If the state has restrictions on residential, and the city wants to have a more mixed-use development in that part of town, so that you know, kids, the residents can, can walk to commercial properties, that there are jobs and housing within the same walk shed, and so forth. That's something that the city should consider, take into consideration in drawing the boundaries of the TID district. And the other thing is that I don't know how it I don't know in this specific case if it makes sense, but typically you are concentrating property value in the TID district to the possible detriment of properties that are immediately outside of it, and that sort of picks winners and losers. And the question of how that works should be studied. These are probably more questions for Andy than, but anyway, okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Hi, Robert Karp, 418 North Washington Street. So I'm a member of a group in town called Threefold Driftless, and we've been holding a lot of forums in the community on the future of Viroqua. We call them Shaping the Future of Viroqua. And I didn't come here tonight to tell you about our group and what we're doing, so I'm not prepared to do that, but I'm felt inspired to talk because these questions of how we grow and the processes by which this community grow are becoming so important and so complicated. Like a TID district, I mean, it's rocket science. And you add to that zoning, you add to that land use planning. And what we're seeing is there's a lot of people in this community who care about these issues, and they need more engagement to understand how to dynamically participate and give their input and feel part of shaping the future of Viroqua. So I just want to kind of express our feeling that there's really there's a need for more listening sessions, public forums. Like, this is a super important time for this community. And it's a great opportunity to engage a lot more people in envisioning what we want to become and looking at the comp plan and how it relates to zoning and how it relates to TID districts. And like, it's great that we have professionals. And it's also great to engage a lot of non-professionals, regular folk in this community, and helping think about our future. And I just wanted to put in a plug, as we have a new mayor on board, we're going to have a new city administrator. We would love to work with the city to help engage more people in thinking about and shaping the future of Viroqua. So thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Deb Miller, 1104 Rogers Avenue. So I think I would like to say something that could happen is like, I'm here as a homeless advocate for the tiny home, or sorry, for the housing advisory board, and something that I feel like could be considered also is saving some green space and looking at more housing specifically tiny home communities. And then I also have a public comment from Agia Scavuza, and she's at 303 East Decker Avenue. And I just have to something that she wanted me to read. I'm not able to join, but here's my comment. As a strategic planner, when I hear about the limitations reached in the talks regarding the VFW land, my instincts are to think outside of the box and collaboratively about solutions. In my experience, the first foundational step to getting difficult things done is the cultivation of understanding and respect for the positions of all involved parties. From this starting point, we can quickly assess the strategic gaps and move to fulfill them. often through innovative solutions. A good deal depends first and foremost on the mindsets of those intimately involved in the greater community. For these reasons, after talking briefly with Mayor Brown and hearing her vision, I am grateful to have her step into a facilitative role that every good leader knows is their duty. It takes due diligence and care to broker such projects. It takes creativity and solution seeking, facilitative thinking. My hope is that we can continue supporting the legacy work of Vernon Trails and their ability to continue stewarding this land while simultaneously respecting the fiduciary responsibility of the VFW's decision makers. The VFW has a duty to its members and its future. We must move beyond seeing this as a stalled, unworkable deal. Instead, we should provide the community with a meaningful vehicle for involvement, perhaps through a pledge campaign, while exploring federal and state funding options. If necessary, we should even consider mixed funding models involving private partners that satisfy these financial requirements. By getting creative, we can envision an even more inclusive public space that serves as a catalyst for how Viroqua solves problems together in the future. We all know that a town of our size faces real budget realities and real concerns about growth to move forward without losing what makes Viroqua special. We have to be smarter than the average developer. I'm not advocating bringing in outside interest, rather encouraging an open mind toward Viroqua-led partnerships that solve financial gaps because we have both the talent and financial resources. In the future, we will face many more obstacles and be presented with opportunities to solve new or growing problems. By using our practical Midwest discretion, we can ensure that any investment serves the community first. Currently, there is a feeling that growth is happening to us. What I'm saying is that instead, we can direct that growth to match our values and protect our town's character. Working together to prevent this land from going to a developer is a community-defining moment that I know we can meet confidently with many options still on the table. I yield back.
Thank you, Deb and Gia.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Gregory Splinter on West Decker. Been in the area 25 years and living here in Viroqua. It's our 13th year now. Nate, sorry to see you go. You've been a champ. Made us all look good. I appreciate you. We're all doing good work here. And I'd just like to offer a really brief observation of instead of, we've been looking at things like that, getting into the minutia of all these really tools that we have and, trying to making really good decisions about those. So the observation I'd like to bring tonight is to do a shift of that. In the conversations today and building on what my colleagues have said already, I believe, Nate, at some point, talking about the TIDs, you said, but it's a tool, but what is it for? And that really rang with me. So what I see is that while doing this work of this detailed work, we're still lacking a consensus and a vision of what Viroqua is. And you got to start somewhere. What is the optimal population of Viroqua in 10 years? Is it 4,500? Is it 15,000? But let's start discussing that or having conversations about that. What is the economic mix of people living here in Viroqua? Are we all middle-class housing? Do we have, how much percentage is executive housing? How much is low-income housing? What is a healthy mix of all people here economically? And by that way, also racially, employment-wise. And one of the tools historically that helps cities do this are drawings. what would happen if we took a plan of Viroqua and said, this is going to be this density, and we're going to have executive housing, middle-class housing, low housing. This is where the tiny homes or small homes are going to be. But and then what we do is that we use all this brain power and then back into the vision that we all pretty much agree on, to a drawing of what the densities, socioeconomics, densities of buildings, number of population. So I hope that sits well. And thanks for all your work. And I love living in Viroqua. I'm an advocate of Viroqua wherever I go. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. Is there anybody online wanting to make public comment?
I do not see anybody who is rushing to make public comment at this time.
Okay. With that, then we will close the second period for public comment and move back to item 13, a possible closed session per Wisconsin statutes 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. 40 acres of VFW land purchase.
This is Todd. I move to go into closed session.
Todd, I'll second it.
Roll call.
Kyle?
Here.
Is that a yes? Headspace?
Aye.
Cindy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Tanya?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
AJ?
Aye.
And Todd Kirking?
Aye.
Gotta wait here. Yeah,
Yeah, come on up. Figure this out.
well, Tanya's on. Tanya. Oh,
I'm here,
Oh, good.
as is everybody else.
All right. We are on item 14, reconvene an open session with possible action on items discussed during closed session.
I make a motion, we proceed with what was discussed in open session,
Todd, I'll second it.
closed session.
All in favor,
Aye.
say aye.
Oh my.
Any opposed? Okay. We've already done second period for public comment. If we have a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Todd. Okay. We are adjourned.
Aye.
Roll
Aye.
call and
Aye.
Kyle, I made more